Hey, how's it going, you guys? It's Max Carpenter with Utah Sourcing LLC, coming at you with a little video here about doing a quick comp on properties. So this is going to be relevant for wholesalers, agents, or maybe anyone with just heavy lead volume, lots of leads and calls to get through. So for me personally, I'll have maybe 5 or 10 leads and I don't want to spend 4 hours on them. Or maybe I don't want to be frustrated when I prepare a whole CMA just for the seller to not even answer, right? So this is going to be a video, a demonstration on how to basically in 10 to 12 minutes find out who's the property owner, who should be the property owner, what's their tax situation, how much taxes might be owed on the property, what's the state of the neighborhood, the parking situation, and a general ARV rental potential and therefore offer. This is all going to be within 10 minutes, right? So if the seller doesn't answer, or maybe they're argumentative, or they just went under contract, I'm not going to worry because I've got other leads and I only spent 10 minutes on this one, right? But I'm still going to come up with a detailed price and I'll show you guys how, okay? So let's start off with this property. I'm in Detroit here. Like I said, this is for agents, wholesalers, anyone doing acquisitions. But for me personally, I'm in Detroit here doing wholesaling, for sale by owner. The first property I'm looking at here is on the east side. It's on Helen Street and it's a multifamily. I know a lot of you guys don't like the east side, but I do have some investors that are looking for stuff specifically in this area. So let's take a look. I don't have too many photos, but I can see that we obviously need some windows. The brick is in good condition and it looks like we have off-street parking. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm trying to be quick here, copy and paste, copy the address. Gonna see what I can figure out just from reading the description here. Built in 1916. So brickwork has been done. Structural integrity is good. Okay, so development agreement with City of Detroit. I'm not sure if that's a land bank thing. That's something I want to pay attention to, obviously. So it looks like there shouldn't be any major plumbing things that need to happen. The roof looks decent, but it's obviously going to be a full renovation. So at the moment, I'm thinking it's a little overpriced, but I'm certainly interested. So first thing I did was I copied the address. I'm going to go to Google Maps, paste my address, and first thing that's going to tell me is, was Zillow inaccurate? Because sometimes Zillow is going to place you in a whole different area or up or down the street. So let's see what area we are in. Okay, I'm all loaded up. Okay guys, so first thing I'm noticing here, and this is why you'd like to go on Street Views, there's a side yard parcel right here. That's got my interest. And there's no driveway here on the side of the property. No driveway, no garage. And if we look on the Zillow description, it says we have a detached garage here. So that's why you guys need to go on to Google Maps and kind of do some investigating for yourself, because that's going to give you a better idea of what's really going on. The street does look good. Doesn't look too run down or anything. There's lots of cars. So the street is good, but no, there's no detached garage. There's a side yard parcel, so that leads me to my next investigation. So the next piece of information I want to find out, I'm going to go to the Wayne County Treasurer. You can just look up pay property taxes online, Wayne County, Michigan. And I'm going to look up 3934 Helen, right? And this is going to tell me two things. One, is there any outstanding delinquent taxes on the property? No, there's not. And two, it tells me the owner's name, which is going to be blacked out for you guys, but let's say it's Bob and Joanne. right? So Bob and Joanne, when I make this call, I'm hoping either Bob or Joanne picks up, right? Otherwise, I want to know who's the owner, or if the person is claiming to be the owner, what's going on, quit claim deed, what's the situation here, right? Because I can see who's paying the taxes, I can see whose name is likely on the deed. So that's two handy pieces of information, but there's a third you can gather. So like I saw earlier, there's a side yard parcel, this 3942. This could add some equity to our deal, right? So let's go back to our Wayne County pay property taxes and switch this to 3942 Helen Street. What does this tell me? Well, it tells me that no, Bob or Joanne does not own the lot next door. The Detroit Land Bank Authority owns the lot next door. So no, there's not more equity in our deal, but at least I was able to determine that just from the tax website, right, and Google Maps. So those two websites alone have told me quite a bit. And those are things that Zillow wouldn't have necessarily said, or if you look at the parking situation, has actually misled us on so far, right? So in general, we have a good idea of the structure. Hopefully just a cosmetic repair. Obviously, at 3,000 square feet, that's going to be a lot of cosmetic repair, but hopefully just a cosmetic repair. Foundation should be good. But we've got quite a bit of information so far, and we've still got a few more minutes, right? Okay. So let's duplicate this tab and see if we can't come up with a general ARV/rental potential for this property. So let's go to for rent in the area. Make sure your filters are correct. So I'm going to do 1,000 to 1,750, guys, and the reason for that is because this area is a little bit dry, and for the most part, I'm looking for the quality of the finish inside of these apartments. And are they asking for $1 a square foot, more than $1 a square foot, or less, right? I'm not being too picky on beds or bath. Like I said, this area is kind of dry, and I'm more looking for price per square foot on a well-finished property. So here's a townhouse. That's 3.1. That's less than $1 a square foot. What else is there? Again, not looking for the entire place. More looking for a townhouse or apartment. So here is a 2.1, and they're asking for more than $1 a square foot. This is done up really nicely, finished really nicely. Does look like they might have off-street parking, so that's something to take into consideration. Oh, there's a 4.1 for 1,200. That's gotta be a good deal. 950, so a little bit less than $1 a square foot here. About exactly $1 a square foot here. At less square footage for a 3.1. Okay, guys, so I'm averaging out $1 a square foot. I suppose you could ask for it, especially since obviously whoever buys this is going to be renovating it. It's going to be newly and nicely done. I also know my buyers, right? Sometimes I advertise. For example, this one I would advertise at $1 a square foot per unit, 1,500 square feet per unit, 3,000. I would advertise this one at 2,500, 2,600 to 3,000 a month, right? If they do a good job. I know my investors, and they hike up the price. They'll ask 1,650 per unit, and that's just something you'll learn after dealing with your buyers and your investors for a little while and learning your market. Is you'll learn where to advertise and put the correct price. But let's say 2,600 to 3,000 per month. And let's go to sold, see if we can't come up with a general ARV. Again, make sure your filters are correct. So let's go to 2,500 to 3,500. And then importantly, let's go to sold in the last 12 months instead of 3 or 6. Again, this area is a little bit dry. 657. So as we creep towards Indian Village, I'm going to discount those prices. That's obviously a different neighborhood. Here's a multifamily for more square footage, selling for 250. So I'd say that would be maybe your max if that's done up very well. Here's a 3.2 that sold for 250, and that's very close to our property. There's a 6.2, less square footage for 250. Okay, but again, these are the higher prices. 6.2, less square footage, more rooms, less square footage, sold for 200. Okay, we have not brick, a 6.227 for 160. Here's your outlier, right? So this is going to happen when you're dealing with multifamilies and you're advertising multifamilies to rental investors. You're going to have these outliers that buy at 30 to 40 a square foot. This guy's making serious cheddar, holy cow. And that is ROI right there. But for you guys that maybe do 5 comps and then take out the 2 outliers, this is probably going to be your outlier. Otherwise, I would say you could fetch maybe 175 to 225 for this property. But again, that's just not leaving enough back end equity for me to really be confident to advertise that on the back end. So this is probably going to be a rental deal, right? And I think, I mean, really, to be at 2% on this, I would have to offer him $0. But I think to get this under contract, I think to advertise this, I think where we'd want to start is 50K plus closing costs. And obviously, like we saw earlier, this has been on Zillow for a while, so I'm going to offer to him 50K in closing costs. It's a little much for me. I'm sure it's a little less than he wants to. But that's the number I'm going to start the call off with, minus less any major repairs that we might find out. So I think on this property so far, the main things we want to know is what's going on with the city of Detroit. Is it a land bank property, or what's going on with that contract? What other repairs that we're maybe not seeing need to be done on the inside, plumbing, electrical, and then obviously we're going to subtract that from our offer price, right? Okay, so one quick thing to mention, and this is another piece of information you can gather, is I can somewhat tell what this owner's motivation level is by how long this has been on Zillow, right? So 208 days on Zillow tells me 2 things. 1, he's probably sick and tired of taking phone calls and is ready for a check. And 2, it tells me I might be able to be a little bit more ballsy with perhaps a low ball or a lower offer. If this was 5 days on Zillow or 2 days, maybe I would just say, let's get you under a contract and I'll represent you for the price that you want, and I'll just forward you which offers I get. When it's been 208 days on Zillow, this gives me a little bit more confidence to say, will you take a check for 50? We'll take care of closing costs and get you a check for 50 after all expenses are said and done. 684 views can kind of tell me how many people might also have interest, and also the saves, of course. So this is going to tell me a little bit about the owner's motivation level and how long he's been dealing with phone calls on Zillow. Okay, so in the last 10 to 12 minutes, guys, we've determined a few things, and this was only looking at 3 websites: Zillow, Google Maps, and the Wayne County Treasurer. We determined who's the property owner, or at least who should be the owner when we're calling, what's their motivation level, right? And I've determined that from how many days on Zillow. The state of the neighborhood, so I've looked at the street, I've looked at houses around this house, what is the parking situation, and I've come up with a general ARV and rental potential for this property, and therefore an offer price. So I'm thinking you could fetch maybe 175, 200 for this, rent it out for 25, 2,600 to 3,000 a month, depending on how well you fix it up. This is, again, guys, for people who might have heavy lead volume, not necessarily for you guys who are just trying to get into wholesaling. If you're just trying to get into wholesaling, take the time to learn the prices. Take the time to check out the houses that sold down the street. Take the time to call the agent in the neighborhood and figure out what's going on in that market, right? So obviously this isn't a crazy deal with major back-end equity, and we're not coming in at 2% ROI. We're more like 1.5, 1.6. But hopefully you guys got some useful information from following me along with comping this property, looking for what I'm looking for, and hopefully it's given you some tidbits to help you navigating and sorting through your next few leads. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I think there will be another part to this video next week where I'll go a little bit more into how I'm coming up with the costs and pricing for, how much money is the rehab going to take. How do I break down how much money will need to be put into a house before I'm calling the owner? Kind of how much windows are, and just reverse engineering all of these different prices at maybe the square footage slash condition of the house. So I'm gonna go a little bit more into rehab pricing in the next episode, along with ROI. So 2% ROI. What is ROI and cap rate, and what people slash cash buyers and investors are usually looking for in Detroit, which is going to be 2%, right? They're usually looking for their area. Is it brick? And does it hit my ROI 2% marker? So thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll reach out to you next week. Remember to go check out the Utah Sourcing website. I'll put the link down in the description. I do have fix and flip analyzers for you new guys who do want to get into the exact pricing of your house and come up with an exact offer slash exact desired wholesale fee. Or you guys who are looking at rental deals and want to use the ROI 2% slash ARV self price to come up with your offer price slash desired wholesale fee. Thank you guys. It's Max Carpenter with Utah Sourcing. Bye bye.